Many people wonder, can I get a divorce because my spouse is incarcerated, which means your spouse is serving a term either in a jail or prison. The answer is, for a simple, uncontested, no-fault divorce, all the jail or the prison is your spouse's address. Now, if you are outside of Pennsylvania and your spouse is incarcerated in Pennsylvania, that would be treated as your spouse's residence, which would allow you to file a no-fault divorce here in Pennsylvania. Now, people assume that, well, my spouse has done something bad enough that my spouse has been sent to jail. I should be able to get a divorce. That is true in terms of our fault divorce law, but not our no-fault divorce law. Fault divorce, one of the grounds for that kind of a fault divorce is if someone is convicted of a crime for which that person could have been imprisoned for 2 years or more. Now, we talked about fault divorce elsewhere on the site, and for a fault divorce, you have to file the case. Your spouse would have to be served wherever your spouse is located in prison. And after that happens, a hearing would be scheduled. And your spouse, I'm sure, would probably love the opportunity to get out of jail for a day to attend that hearing and say he contests it. Now, if he doesn't show up, the fault divorce would go through, but a fault divorce involving a hearing and a lawyer taking you to the hearing and very high court costs would be very, very expensive, usually in the range of several $1,000s. But that's the only time that someone being convicted of a crime can give you an edge on getting a divorce. So for a no-fault divorce, that the word no fault simply means it's nobody's fault. No matter how badly your spouse has behaved, your spouse could be a murderer many times over, it plays no part in a no-fault divorce. And for a low-cost no-fault divorce, no signature, no divorce. A contested no-fault divorce is possible after you've been apart for over a year, but the no-fault divorce could be contested if your spouse shows up in court, just as the spouse may have done in the fault case. And the fees, once again, go off the charts. So it all comes down to, for a reasonably priced divorce, it has to be no fault, it has to be simple and uncontested, whether or not you or your spouse may be incarcerated. I've actually done divorces where people were both incarcerated, and that's not a problem. We can still do the papers. It's not an issue if your spouse needs to have your spouse's signature notarized. All facilities provide notary service, so that's not an issue either. One nice thing about a spouse being incarcerated is when your spouse moves, we can keep track of him if he's moved from one facility to another. Because if your spouse disappears, whether incarcerated or not, that means your spouse can't cooperate with the divorce, and you could not get an uncontested, simple, low-cost, no-fault divorce in Pennsylvania.